I am going to shut up now and give Michael the floor.
All right. Well, thank you, man. First off, I am always nervous whenever I'm like speaking at these things. Like no matter how many I do, I get so freaking nervous. And it's funny because like it's pretty much just my life story. And like as online coaches, one thing that we're taught to do is like tell our online story or like tell like our personal story, if you will. So like regardless of how much I talk about my personal story, I just like I always get like nervous and like get the butterflies. But I always say that whenever you're nervous, you're ready. Whenever you're afraid, you're ready. And my for you guys that don't know my story, I'm going to recap it for you. A lot of my story deals with a lot of trauma, a lot of abuse, a lot of addiction, a lot of mental health issues as well. So I always do like to put that out there. There are a lot of triggers within my story. So if anything ever makes you feel uncomfortable and you need to just step away, please do that. Whatever makes you feel comfortable. So if you guys can't tell, I am from the UK. I'm kidding. I'm from South Carolina. I'm originally from South Carolina. I now live in Maryland. I like to think that I've disguised my accent pretty well, but I'm originally from South Carolina. South Carolina is not very healthy, if you will. South Carolina is actually one of the highest ranking obesity states within our country. I'm assuming everybody's from the US. With that, that counted my family as well. And a big thing that I focus on with my clients is being a good role model for your kids from a health standpoint. And I love my family. I would do anything for them, but they were not that. They were not good health role models. And like that's from both a physical, a health, and a mental perspective. Grew up with a very abusive dad. My dad was addicted to both drugs and alcohol. He often would abuse my mom and I. So I am a survivor of child abuse as well. Eventually he left my life around 7 or 8 years old, and I blamed myself. I blame myself for the reason, I thought the reason why he left was because I sucked at baseball or because I was a fat kid or because like I wasn't smart enough. I legit blame myself for that because, to be honest, whenever we're children, we don't know better. Like we don't know any better. Like we barely know what like 4 times 4 is. How can we process, hey, why did my dad leave? Like why did my dad leave and not come back? That kind of led to a deep dark spiral with food. That led to a very early binge eating disorder in my life, like around like 12 to 13. I actually got a clinically diagnosed with binge eating disorder, and I found myself at my heaviest. Oops, sorry about that. I found myself at my heaviest around 15, 16 years old. I was 330 pounds. I was a big guy at 15, 16 years old. And, I like to say I was the Chris Farley of my friend group. If nobody knows who Chris Farley is, he was a comedian back in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. A lot of his jokes were based around him being fat, him being a big guy. If you've ever seen like the meme, like fat guy in a little coat from, I forgot what movie that's from. But like I was that guy, but deep down I was hurting. Like deep down, like I legit hated myself. Like I would avoid mirrors, I would wear hoodies in South Carolina weather where it was like 95 degrees. And like, so side story, I've recently learned since moving north that like 85 degrees is warm. And I'm like, what? Like it's like blowing my mind that people like up north like think like it's like hot whenever it's like 86 degrees. I'm like, oh, this is a great day. They're like, oh, it's so hot. But side story. But back to kind of my story real quick. Eventually that bad relationship with myself, led to a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety. I actually tried killing myself whenever I was 16. Trigger warning, remember. Um, Tried killing myself whenever I was about 16. As you guys can see, I failed. After that, I was like, cool, I'm here. I might as well do something. And a lot of people think, oh, that's where his story has like this happy ending and stuff like that. There's some happy parts, but that comes later. Started playing football, lost a little bit of weight, but I was still the fat kid. Like I was still the fat friend. I was still the fat guy in the friend group. Um, Eventually got into college and discovered bodybuilding. fell in love with bodybuilding, fell in love with the gym, fell in love with nutrition, fell in love with it so much that I actually became a personal trainer while I was in college. That's whenever I lost all the weight. A lot of people think, oh man, like that's such a happy ending. My story shows how you have to have a good relationship with yourself internally. It doesn't matter what you look like externally, because I was competing in bodybuilding. I was in the best physical shape of my life. Like I had abs, and I was competing on bodybuilding stages. But one thing people didn't know, I was drinking half a bottle of tequila every night. I was a functioning alcoholic for most of my early 20s. I'm 29 now. I'm almost 30. But for the early part of my 20s, I was a highly functioning alcoholic. A lot of that occurred from a bad breakup occurring. A lot of that occurred from, you know, me having a lot of past traumas that I didn't come to, senses with, or I didn't find a way to heal. I had a lot of open wounds still in my early 20s, that were still around from my childhood and from like my teenage years. And I never like did any work on that. I never tried to heal, those internal wounds or like those past traumas. So I did what my dad did. And, whenever I found myself in that situation, I was like, I see how easily he turned to this because it's comfort. It's just like with food. It's just like with, anything really. It's like with any bad habit. Like it provides comfort. It provides that quick band-aid. But in reality, in the same breath, being an alcoholic made me lose the job that I loved. I went from working in the education field at a very young age. I worked at my alma mater. I made a lot of stupid mistakes one night whenever I was intoxicated and lost my job like the then following Monday. After that, I found myself working part time at a vitamin shop, and like it's really weird because like I'm sure you guys see all of my expensive piece of papers back there. It's really weird being a guy with a master's degree, especially an MBA, and you're working part time at a vitamin shop, and you're drinking half a bottle of tequila every night, and you only have $100 in your bank account, and all you know how to do is to go to the gym and abuse, not abuse people, but use people for sexual desires, because like that's all I knew. That's how I knew how to cope with my internal wounds, with my internal traumas, was alcohol and sex. I like to tell people that the Mike I was from age 23 to 25, I have no idea who he is, because I really don't. I look back at that time and I'm like, I have no idea who that guy is. And like I'm engaged now. I have a beautiful fiance. She's actually in the living room listening to this, probably because she's nosy and she eavesdrops. But like I tell her all the time, I'm like, I'm so glad you didn't meet that version of me, because that was me at my darkest. I went to a Buffalo Wild Wings one night after I got off of a shift at the vitamin shop, which was typical. Like I went, had a few beers, had some wings, watched the Monday night football game, and I left during like the middle of the third quarter. I was like, I only have like $100 in my bank account. I really have no friends. Um, every female that's in my phone pretty much hates me just because like I had one thing on my mind, and I really have nothing to live for. I went to Buffalo Wild Wings one night, had a few beers, decided to leave in the middle of the football game, go to Walmart, get a 24 pack, and finish the job. Get on a old country road that led down to my house. And guys, like still to this day, I've never seen like a cross checking point or like a DUI checkpoint on that road, just because it's like an old country road. And I turned on that road, started cracking them open, had about two or three, like, and like I drank them fast, because keep in mind, like I'm a functioning alcoholic at this time. So like I could just go through beer like it's nothing at that point. Rolled up on a checkpoint, and uh, I saw the cop cars, and I was laughing at myself because how dumb I am. But like I threw the suitcase of beer back into the back of my car, and cop comes through the window. He could obviously tell I've been drinking. And he pulls me out of my car and he does a whole DUI checkpoint. And I'm like, dude, I live like 2 minutes from here. I promise you. Like we can legit walk there together if you want to. Like I'm fine, but like legit, I live right down the road. And he was like, okay, I got that. Just hang tight. And he came back and he wrote me a ticket. he wrote me a ticket for open container, and I thanked him for kind of letting me go. And something told me to just break down. Like something told me to just like have a moment of weakness with this man that I never knew. And keep in mind that with my abusive relationship with my dad, I'm very intimidated by men. Whenever a male gets very loud with me, I don't respond very well. So something just happened within that moment that said, dude, you got to break down. You got to do something. You got to like take control of your life. And if you ever listen to anything that I produce or like any of my podcasts, one of the biggest things I talk about is taking control, because I'm a firm believer that you're able to take control of every single aspect of your life. And it's because I did that. Like that night I went home, I poured out all of the beer that was left in the suitcase, and I cried myself to sleep. I woke up the next morning, and I was like, dude, you're going down the path that your dad went down. And we see how that ended. My dad died whenever I was 20 because he had a tumor on his liver. And that really woke me up. I was in good shape. I was still doing bodybuilding, like I was still working out. Like Mike physically was in shape. Mike physically looked good. Mike physically was in a good state of health, but mentally and internally, not so much. And I tell this story from both perspectives of being a fat guy going into a in shape guy to being an in shape guy to a guy that's battling addiction and battling trauma still. I tell both perspectives of it because I want people to understand it. Like I had to have a talk with a client of mine earlier. She told me earlier, she was like, once I get rid of the belly fat, I'll be happy. Once I get rid of the belly fat, I won't hate myself as much. I called her out. I said, no, you won't. She was like, what do you mean? I was like, you won't. Like, you will legit find something else to hate about yourself, because there's something deep down that you're not working on. There's something in your past, whether it's an ex-boyfriend or like a comment your mom made. It could be so many different things. There's something deep down that you haven't healed yet, because you have to love who you are regardless of the phase you're in. Because understand that the phase you're in now is going to take you to the phase to where you eventually want to be. And I think a lot of times people, they harp on themselves so much for where they currently are that they don't realize where you currently are. That's the vehicle that's going to get you to where you want to be. And while I physically got to where I wanted to be, I wasn't mentally, spiritually, or just like overall wise. And like my story is just a story that a lot of people will think, oh, he lost the weight and like everything was perfect, everything went to normal. It didn't. It really didn't. I was in the best shape of my life. I was alcoholic, a functioning alcoholic. I was also doing cocaine on the weekends, so I dabbled in drugs as well. Like I was being, I don't, what's the word I'm looking for? There's like a special term for it that the kids use these days where like, um, excuse my language. I'm just going to call it what I know it's called, a fuck boy. I was that. Um, I was not living a good life. So I like to tell both sides of the story just because it shows it shows people perspective. Hey, just because I get in the shape that I want to be in, that doesn't mean everything's perfect now. And I think it's really important for people to understand. So yeah, that's kind of my story in a nutshell. Before I see a Chad. Is that the new term for it, Devin? I'm assuming that is because I see it on TikTok all the time. But like that's pretty much my story in a nutshell before we really dive deep into what I want to talk about tonight, which is my story, but like there's more to it than that.
Awesome. So real quick, does anybody have any questions for Michael before he goes into that?
I was just wondering, like, I'm sitting here listening and I'm kind of curious, like, how did you find the motivation to do that? Like, for me, that's the one thing that I struggle with is just finding the motivation to get up, to do it. Like, I know I have to do it. I know what has to be done, but something's holding me back.
Which part?
The motivation part.
Yeah, but like weight loss, addiction, like
Weight loss.
Dude, honestly, like I got tired of hating how I looked. Like for real, like just being like blunt with you. Like I legit got tired of hating how I looked. I got tired of being like the fat guy in the friend group. I was still the fat guy in the friend group, like, towards the end of high school. And like I got into college and I was like, well, shit, like I'm now in a place where I get to rewrite who I am because nobody knows who I am. Like I get to be a different version of Michael now. So like, why not make this version of Michael the Michael who loves to work out, or the Michael who loves to drink protein shakes, or the Michael who eats protein bars instead of candy bars? So it primarily became this, I wouldn't call it a journey, but like it pretty much became like this thing where I was like, cool, I could become who I always wanted to become now. And I think that really kind of pushed me forward. That kind of really motivated me to keep going, because I was in a place where, I'm in college, nobody really knows who I am. So I get to write my own story now. I get to write a new story. And like I'm kind of like experiencing that now in Maryland. Because like I grew up in South Carolina all my life. I'm in Maryland now. Nobody knows who the hell I am. I get to be the Michael that I want to be. Like politically, ideology, like business wise, I'm finally able to be who I want to be because nobody up here knows me.
Right. And so to kind of piggyback off of that in a logical standpoint, sometimes when we approach our fitness, we look at it as like a math equation where it's like, I'm not going to be Y unless I have X, or Y won't happen unless X happens. And when we put those expectations on ourselves, especially when the expectation is something that is external, where there's no control over motivation, right? But what we do have control over is just doing it, regardless of how we feel. So there is obviously always going to be those times where you don't feel like doing it. I don't feel like doing it. Michael don't feel like doing it. We're coaches and we still don't feel like doing it. But really you have to see the bigger picture. You really do. Because if it's just for the short-term goals, if it's just to look good for your winter vacation, it's not going to stick. But when your why is clear enough, you don't need a Gary Vee video. You don't need a Bradley video to get you motivated. You don't need an Eric Thomas video when your why is clear enough. So really it's just taking a step back and asking yourself, what is it that I want? What vehicle am I going to use to get there? And who's going with me? And if nobody's going with me, that's fine.
I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
So I would argue the biggest thing people struggle with, especially, you recognize, okay, I need to make a change.
Mhm.
You totally accept the fact that it has to happen. The hardest part has to be that first step. What was the first step you took to get on that better path?
So like, once again, like, are we talking weight loss, addiction?
We're talking addiction. I would argue the mental aspect of, if you can get the mental aspect of fixing your entire life, you can focus on fitness. So just, you recognize you're at that point where you're like, I'm going to end it tonight if I don't do something.
Yeah.
Like, how do you go? What's your first step from literal rock bottom to get back on the path of getting a good life for yourself?
Dude, like, to be honest, like I woke up that next morning and I walked into my office, and like I forgot to add this part into the story. I actually lived like in like a house that my mom owned. It was like a single wide trailer. Like it had like 2 bedrooms. One bedroom was my room and one bedroom was my office. And it's actually, this office is a lot bigger than that one. But like I walked into my office that morning and like I saw my degrees on the wall, and like I saw a picture of my best friend and I on the wall. And he's a chiropractor now. And I thought to myself, I was like, dude, like what the fuck are you doing? Like seriously, like what are you doing? Like you have all this potential in the world. Because like, even as the fat 8-year-old who was trying to figure out why daddy left and never came back, and even as the fat 16-year-old trying to figure out why he can't get a girlfriend, I always knew I was destined to do something great. I always knew, like deep down in my soul, like from the age of like 7 or 8 till like today, I knew like I'm supposed to be the one. And Ed Milet, he talks about there's always the one in somebody's family. There's always the first millionaire. There's always the first person to make their health a priority. There's always the first business owner. My family, everybody's overweight. Everybody has diabetes. There's a long line of addiction in my family. So why can't I be the one? So to kind of answer your question, the first step that I took, was legit coming to terms that, hey, if you're going to do this, you do it. If you're not going to do it, don't waste your time. Like, if you're not going to do it, what's going to happen is you're going to continue down this path. You'll eventually die or develop cirrhosis, whichever one happens first. And people are going to remember you as the guy who has all of these expensive pieces of paper, who is smart as hell, who's a very nice person, in my opinion. I think I'm very nice. You're going to be remembered as the guy who drank himself to death, who had all of this potential and didn't live up to it. And if that does not eat away at you, I don't know what will. Because like, just the fact of like, I don't want to be the guy that's remembered as Michael, the guy that drank himself away and he had all this potential. Yeah, he was a nice guy, but he had all this potential, and he just decided drinking was more important. So literally, it was that first step was basically saying, hey, you have all this potential. It's time to actually start taking the steps. Will it suck? Absolutely. I would lie to you if I would be lying to you if I sat here and said I haven't relapsed some. I'd be lying, like straight up lying, because it happens. But it doesn't happen to the point of where I need alcohol. I have a beer and I move on. Where before, I needed an entire half a bottle of tequila just to be able to feel something, just to be able to feel okay. So like legit, it's just legit taking that first step and planting your flag and saying, look, I'm doing this. I'm all in. And if you're not all in, be all out. Because if you're only going to have one foot in this, you're not really going to get anywhere. You might see some small results, cool, but in the end, you're not going to see the results that you actually desire. So it's just a matter of looking yourself in the mirror and asking yourself, hey, are you tired of your bullshit, pretty much? All right, cool. So I do like to let people know whenever I tell my story, I have a different tone than whenever I'm educating, lecturing, or teaching. Whenever I tell my story, I try to have like a very somber, like neutral tone whenever telling it, just because like my story has a lot of sense to pieces to it. So I don't like to really bring my voice up and down that much. So whenever I start like lecturing you guys about what I want to talk about, you might hear a lot more different tones. You might hear some aggressive language. You might get your feelings hurt. Please know everything I say is out of love. Please know that everything I say is out of support. And I just want to see you guys win in life. Like legit, anything I say, don't take it personal. Okay. Because to be honest, if you take it personal, that's a good thing. It adds to like the motivational bank. I want to talk to you guys tonight, and like you guys have been blowing up the chat box about it. We're talking about motivation. So lucky you. The one thing you guys have been dying to hear on, we are actually going to be talking about motivation. My story does tie a lot into it. And, Devin got some brief like glimpses out of me whenever it comes to motivation. I'm also going to talk about time management as well a little bit, just because it can tie into one another. So the first thing I really want to tell you guys, and I mean this with love, with every like ounce of love in my being, but you are a liar. You're a liar. Every single one of you looking at me right now. You're a liar. And like legit, let that sink in. I'm not calling you a liar saying like you cheat on your spouse. I'm not calling you a liar saying you cheat on your taxes. If you do, that's the IRS's problem. But what I'm saying is, if you are sitting here telling yourself, I can't do something, I can't lose the weight, I can't drink all the water, I can't eat all the calories because I'm used to only eating 800 calories a day, I can't eat broccoli, I can't eat vegetables, I can't do this, I can't do that, you're a liar. And the reason why I say this is because you are capable of whatever you want to do in life. One thing that really like gets up under my skin and sometimes is whenever I'm talking to people and they just go, man, it's so hard. Man, it's like, it just seems like I can't ever catch a break. Man, it seems like you have it so easy. Then I tell them my story. Yeah, I survived suicide twice. My dad used to beat the shit out of me. Survived addiction. Survived obesity. Please tell me The guy who survived suicide twice, the guy who survived addiction, the guy who survived a alcoholic and a drug addict beating the shit out of him. Language is getting rough. All right. So there's your warning about language. Please tell the guy who's been through all this how hard things are. If somebody grew up with both parents, I'm not saying they didn't experience trauma. They didn't experience some things. But I know at least they have both parents. So that's just like me saying, hey, my fiance and I, we're planning a family in a few years. That's like me saying, hey, oh, I don't know how to be a dad. My dad wasn't around. True, facts. But you know what I'm doing? I'm learning how to be a dad. A lot of my friends are dads. I talk to my friends about being a dad. I go, hey, like as a dad, how do you approach the situation? Hey, as a dad, what do you do here? I have no experience being a dad. Sure, I have dogs. It's not the same thing. Don't tell my fiance that because she'll be mad. But it's not the same thing. And it's the same thing with you trying to lose weight, or you trying to build muscle, or you trying to start a new health journey. We're not, as coaches, we don't expect you to be perfect. We don't expect you to step into this realm and automatically knock it out of the park. My journey, I'm still on my journey. I've been on my journey for going on 14, 15 years now. Your journey never ends. Malachi's journey is still going. Kane's journey is still going. A lot of people think like, oh, my health journey, it has like a starting point and an ending point. No, it doesn't. It just has a starting point. It has a starting point, and your ending point, guess what? Is whenever you die. And guess who gets to determine when you die, unless it's a freak accident? You do. And like, I'm being legit here. I tell people all the time, hey, would you rather be able to be around for your kids until you're 60 or until you're 80? Once again, not a dad, but I know whenever I become a dad, I'm going to do everything in my power to ensure that I'm around for my kids until, I can't be around any longer. If that's doing additional cardio, if that's eating vegetables that I don't like, if that's doing something I don't like. Guys, like Malachi kind of hit it on the head, whenever he said, like, we don't always feel like doing this shit. And just to speak facts on this, and, I told Malachi earlier that, I'm so glad today is happening on the day that I'm having this talk with you guys. Guess who spent most of the day sitting in this chair crying? Hi, it was me. Guess who sat in this chair today contemplating if he was a good enough coach? Hi, me again. Guess who was sitting here thinking, maybe I should just go find a sales manager job at some gym. I'm good at sales. I'm good at managing. I can make a decent amount of money. Hi, me again. Guess who also went to the gym today, even though he didn't feel like it, put in the work, and cried twice in the gym? Hi, me again. Guys, sometimes this stuff gets hard. Sometimes life doesn't give a shit about your health journey. Legit, that's just straight facts. Life sometimes does not care about your goals. I have a goal of becoming a millionaire by the time my fiance starts having our kids. I've given myself 30 months. 30 months from last month. So I'm now at 29. I'm now at 29 months. Do I expect life to just put everything on pause for me and go, you know what, this Mike guy, he's a nice guy. He's helping all these people. He gives away all this money. He gives all the way, all this free coaching away. He gives people all these amazing speeches to hype them up and make them feel good inside, make them feel like they can kick somebody's ass. He's such a nice guy. We should put everything on pause for him. No. Life does not get put on pause for anybody. Not me, not Malachi, not Kane, not you, nobody. Well, yeah, Mark Cuban and Gary Vee and all them guys that got so easy. Do you know why they have it so easy? And this is speaking more from a financial and a business perspective. It's because they worked their asses off to get to where they are. They worked, they crawled, they clawed. Gary Vee talks about it a lot. He talks about all of the sacrifices he's made. Now, I'm not saying you have to sacrifice the way Gary Vee did to make your health better. But guess what? Some of that sacrifice means instead of drinking the entire six-pack while watching Monday Night Football, you have one, maybe two beers. Instead of eating the entire pizza or the entire like pizza pie, you only have 2 slices. And instead of like having that piece of cake at the birthday party that's the size of your hand, you get a smaller piece. That's the sacrifices we're talking about. We're not talking about doing this like amazing like life change, because like I said, you're stepping into a realm you are so unfamiliar with. You're stepping into a realm where you have no experience with. That's why you hire a coach. You hire a coach to get from 0 to 1,000 a lot quicker. Because guys, guess what? I lost all that weight by myself. Do you know how long it took me to lose all that weight by myself? It took me almost 10 years. I've lost 135 pounds. It took me almost 10 years by myself. Guess what? I could have lost it a lot quicker if I had somebody guiding me. I could have lost it a lot quicker if I had somebody actually holding the flashlight for me. I love the flashlight analogy because, like, think about it, like you're working like on a car or something with your dad or your granddad and you're holding the flashlight. You're helping him. You're helping him make the job easier. And oftentimes, like our own motive, like not our own motivation, but we get in our own way because we think, oh, we don't need help. No, I don't need help. I got it. I can get it. I can do it myself. Guys, it's okay to ask for help, because a lot of you in the chat box right now saying, yeah, let's talk about motivation. Motivation. Yeah, man, bring it on. You don't need motivation. Like legit motivation, guess what? It gets you out that door, but it doesn't keep you going. Motivation doesn't keep you going. What does keep you going is habits. Whenever you actually start building habits, Nick Ross, who is a mentor of both Malachi, Kane's, and I's, or mine's, or however you say it, I'm not an English major, but Nick Ross talks about stacking W's all the time. He talks about circling the daily W. And guess what? That daily W can mean anything. It doesn't mean you made $1,000 today. It doesn't mean you lost a pound today. It doesn't mean you went for like a jog today. It could simply be you finally start drinking water. You finally put the soda down. You finally made a commitment to yourself. You finally put $50 in your savings account. It could be whatever you want it to be. Because whenever you actually start building those habits, you no longer need motivation. Example, I went to the gym today. I was depressed and like legit, like if you guys need to see the text, like between Malachi and I can show it to you. Because like I legit broke down to Malachi while I was in the gym. I was like, dude, like today's just fucking sucked. Like today's just been rough. And like to be real with you guys, I went to the gym because I know I needed to be there. I went to the gym because I know if I don't do this, I'm going to let myself down. If I don't go to the gym and do this, I'm going to let my future kids down. Because guys, I understand I come from a place where addiction is normal. I come from a place where obesity is normal. I come from a place where it's normal to barely make $50,000 a year. It's normal for people not to make their life, like their health, a priority. My granddad turned 74 the other day, and he legit told me, he was like, I don't know how I made it this far with high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and like diabetes. I didn't say this, but I thought it. I'm like, you're right. Me either. I don't want my kids to think that. I don't want my kids to look at me and go, Dad, take care of your health. Dad, please just like eat a vegetable. Dad, just go for a walk with me. My mom, I love her to death. My mom was one of the legit reasons why I stayed around on this planet as a kid, because I knew she needed me. And my mom is not much older than me, actually. I'm going to be 30 in March, and my mom just turned 50. So my mom is about 20 years older than me. So like the age difference isn't that big. My mother has diabetes. My mother has high blood pressure. My mother will probably lose her kidney within the next year because her kidneys are shutting down. My mother also has a lot of spinal issues due to being overweight. I sat in a ICU unit with her back in February or March. It was March. And I was getting ready to leave. And like I was just talking to her, I was talking to her about, business stuff and, us moving because we were we were planning on moving up here, like because we were like selling the house and crap around that time. Doesn't matter. I sat there and I looked at her and like I still remember the moment. I still remember what I was wearing. I looked at her and I said, I need you. I legit broke down. My mother hasn't seen me cry since maybe I was 18. And that's whenever my grandma died. I broke down and I said, look, I need you. Like, I'm not playing anymore. Like, I legit need you. Because keep in mind, I've written out meal plans for my mom. I've written out workout guides. I've written out diets for the last decade. So I've done my part. I've showed up for her. She didn't show up for me. But yet still, I'm sitting here begging my mother, hey, will you please make your health a priority? Will you please take care of yourself? Will you please do better? I'm not asking you to go for a jog every day. I'm just asking you to start watching what you eat more, to start drinking water instead of sweet tea more. I legit broke down in that hospital room that day in front of her and begged her. I begged her to take her health more seriously. Some of you guys are parents. Some of you guys will be parents one day. I don't think you want your children in that spot. So once again, tell me why you need motivation. If you're a parent, guess what? You don't need motivation. You wake up to your motivation every day. That little toddler, preteen, teenager, adult, whatever it may be, that calls you mom, that calls you dad, that says, hey, mom, I need you. Hey, dad, I need you. Hey, mom, this happened. I don't know what to do. Hey, dad, I got a flat tire. Can you come help me? That's your motivation right there. You don't need motivation anymore. Because at the end of the day, your motivation is the one thing that you are fighting to be around for. Once again, some of you guys are parents. Some of you guys will be parents one day. Please understand, you don't want your child in that spot that I was in, because it's not a fun spot to be in. I'm still in that spot every single day. I text her about every other day and I go, hey, how are you feeling? Well, I'm feeling okay. Well, are you feeling any better? No, not really. My back hurts. I'm having trouble using the restroom. My stepdad has to do a catheter on her. She's just turned 50. Sure, things happen. Sure, diseases happen. Sure, cancer happens. I get that. But at the end of the day, if you're not making yourself a priority, if you're not making your health a priority, and I'm going to hurt some feelings with this one, don't you dare say you make your kids a priority. Because if you are making them a priority, guess what? You would do what you need to do to be around longer. Well, Mike, I do that by going to work. I do that by working 50 plus hours a week. Mike, you don't know me. You're right. I don't know you. I'm glad you provide for your family financially. That money, it'll run out once you die. But guess what? Those memories that you have with your kids, you got to walk your daughter down the aisle. You got to share, your first beer or whatever with your kid or with your son. Got to go to your first professional football game with your son or daughter. You got to see your grandchild get born. You got to become a great grandparent. You don't want to miss out on those memories. Because guys, I'm telling you, my motivation every single day, and like I just heard her in our hallway, she's my motivation. Every single day I wake up because I want to make her proud. Malachi can attest to that because I brought it up in our conversation earlier. That's my motivation. Do I wake up some days and go, you know what? I want to sleep in. Do I wake up some days and go, there's a new show on Netflix. I want to watch it. Some days do I wake up and go, I really don't feel like going to the gym today. Yeah, absolutely. Once again, hi, I'm the guy who sat in this chair most of my morning and cried because I felt like a failure. At the end of the day, coaches, at the end of the day, people who are in shape, at the end of the day, bodybuilders, at the end of the day, millionaires, billionaires, every single person They go through the same shit that you do. So why is it they are successful and you're not? Why is it that they've lost the weight and you haven't? Why is it that they made all this money and you haven't? Sure, there's outside circumstances, but don't you think they have outside circumstances also? Ed Milet, his daughter goes to Clemson University. It's in South Carolina. And Ed had to move his daughter in. Ed has so much money, he could probably just hire somebody to move her in for him. Guess what? He took a breakaway because he knew a life circumstance needed addressing. Within the same breath, the very next day, he was making podcast appearances. He was posting about his book. He was doing shit he needed to do to become successful. Many of you don't need motivation. You need to start doing what's going to make you successful. Yeah, it's hard to get off the couch sometimes. Yeah, it's hard to get out of this chair on the days where I'm crying, where I'm feeling like a failure, where I'm feeling like I'll never become a millionaire, where I'll feel like I will never give her the house that is actually the background on my laptop. The house I want to buy her in upstate New York, which is where she's from, it's on my laptop. It's the background on my laptop. I look at it every single day whenever I start work and whenever I end work. Some of you can say, Mike, that's your motivation. You got motivation. No, that's my reason. Some of you people, some of you guys, I don't mean to say you people, that sounded weird, but some of you guys, you don't need to be looking for a motivation. You need to be looking for a reason. Once you find that reason, guess what? You never stop working. You never stop growing. You never stop pushing yourself to become that version of yourself that you desire to be. Because earlier I talked about, I talked about going off to college, and, I was able to write or create the Mike that I wanted to be. Then I said, that can kind of relate to where I am now, moving to a different state. I could become the person I want to be. You don't have to go off to college. You don't have to move to a different state. And like I learned this back in South Carolina because I started to become the Michael that I am today. I started becoming him back in South Carolina. Back in South Carolina, I was an addict. I was an alcoholic. I was a Chad. Thank you guys for the term tonight. I was a Chad. I was broke. I was a loser. I had no friends. Nobody liked me. I started working on becoming the Mike that I wanted to be in South Carolina. And guess what? The Mike that I am in Maryland now, I created him back in South Carolina. He's just continuing to grow in Maryland. You simply just have to start. Once you start, never stop. There's actually a saying that we have in Next Level Health Coaching. It goes, you will never fail if you never quit. You will never fail if you never quit. Think about it. The only time you can say you fail is if you go, nope, I'm done. The only time you'll ever fail is if you actually quit. And like, I'm not just talking about, oh man, I messed up on my diet today, I failed. That's not failing. Did you get up the next day and continue forward? Guess what? You're still winning. Oh man, like I had a cheat weekend. I had too many drinks with the girls. Cool. I hope you had a good time. But on Monday, did you get back on the horse? Yeah. You're still winning. You haven't failed. You only fail if you quit. Never quit. And I promise you, you will eventually be successful on this journey.
Hey, Michael, we had a very good question. It was, what is the difference between reason, like the reason you're doing this, and motivation to do it, and how to not confuse both?
That's a great question, actually. So motivation is more like a feeling. Motivation is like, I turn on like an Andy Frisella video and like I get up and like I want to go like jog a mile. That's motivation. Reason is something, it's more like connected to your soul, in my opinion. And I know like some people are like, oh, feelings and like being connected to your soul isn't that the same thing? No. I wouldn't die for that Andy Frisella video. I would die for her. Like legit, I would lay like my life on the line for her. because she's my reason. She's the reason for everything I do. She's the reason I wake up. She's the reason why I work out. She's the reason why I work so hard with my business. Is because I want to make her proud. I want to give her the life that I didn't have growing up. I want to give her the life that like my mom didn't have whenever she was in a marriage. Motivation is just like, so like, for example, I feel motivated right now. Like I could jump out this second story window and like land on my feet and like go sprinting down like the sidewalk. Like I'm just jacked up. Like I'm amped. It's like pre-workout. But I'm going to walk out of my office once I'm done here, and I'm going to look at her and I'm going to go, you know, I love you. Like, thank you for being in my life, because she's my reason. Your reason you died for. Would you die for your motivation? Don't think so. Hope that kind of summed it up.
So real quick, I have something to add. And this will give a good like analogy to it. So like motivation. Motivation is something you think you need to do in order to do something. Reason is something that you need to do. Otherwise, something will happen.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I mean, like, I see it as like, sure, like having a family one day motivates me, but if I don't take care of my health right now, that could be a reason why Catherine and I can't have kids one day, because like I have hypogonadism, which is like a hormonal issue. It's basically where my testosterone turns everything into estrogen, or where estrogen turns I got it backwards. My body turns testosterone into estrogen. So like I know if I don't do the proper things I need to do, like take my supplements and like exercise and eat right, I know that could be the reason why I don't have kids one day. Sure, being a family man motivates me one day, but that doesn't really motivate me to exercise. Like I exercise and eat healthy because I need to be around, because I need to do the things possible for me to be a family man or to be a dad one day. Because don't get me wrong, like I had to take my shot last night because I take a weekly shot for that, and those shots aren't fun. I am not motivated to take the shots at all. like they suck and they hurt. And like I even told my fiance last night, whenever she gave it to me, she was like, "Are you out?" I'm like, "Yeah, this just sucks, but like I'm doing it for a reason." Yeah. Do we have any questions or anything? I know I went on a tangent, and that typically happens whenever I get fired up, and I just get into it. Yeah, and I mean, like, keep in mind, like, I'm a former educator, and like that's one thing that they do teach us in school is like, hey, encourage questions, because like there could be a kid who's scared to actually like talk out, and like one person's question is probably two other people's questions. So
Right. And most of the time with our generation, we think that questioning something is bad when it's not.
yeah, exactly. And it's not just like whoever asked like the difference between like motivation and reason, like that's not a weird question at all. Like I've gotten that question before, like plenty of times, like to the point to where like I had to like sit down and like grab like my journal, and I had to like write out. I'm like, okay, I think motivation is this. I think like reason is this. How do they correlate? How do they differ? So, and like I will touch this part on time, because I know like I was going to add a little like part to that. Here's the deal. You have 168 hours in a day. I coach football, and like I said that to one of my football players the other day because he's making an excuse for not studying. And I was like, dude, you have 168 hours in a day. He was like, wait, I have that many hours? Yeah. Like there's 168 hours in a day. And like most coaches, we only ask you to work out maybe 3 to 4 hours a week. Guess what? After that, you have like 165 hours left. Well, if you work 40 to 50 hours, guess what? You still have over 100 hours left. If you sleep like 7 hours a night, you still have around like 50 to 60 hours left. Like I always break down stuff with people whenever they say, yeah, sorry, what did I say? Did I say in a day? I might have said in a day. It's been a long day. But yeah, there's 168 hours in a week, excuse me. But yeah, no, like whenever you actually sit down and break it down, like it's so feasible to see, hey, I have time. And anytime somebody makes an excuse, hey, I don't have time, I go, cool. Yes, it is a very long day. Geez, I wish we had 168 hours in a day. That'd be great. I think we would all be millionaires. But like anytime somebody says they don't have time, I always encourage them. I'm like, hey, you do a time audit with me. We actually audit your week. If I can't find 3 hours for you to work out, I'll give you $100. So far, nobody has ever took me up on that offer. And I think that just like goes to say something. Right, Devin? But yeah, so like not having time is like really just the myth. And like I have people who do EMS and EMT work and they still get it in. And like some of them they work like 90 hours a week, which is crazy. Devin, I'm assuming that's you. I'm assuming you're a EMT, EMS. Okay, EMS, awesome. Well, thank you for all you do. We actually, Next Level Health, we actually lost a client a few weeks ago who was EMS worker. She got hit by a car while working on somebody on the side of the road. So we actually released a scholarship for EMS people the other week. Well, not only EMS, but like first responders. So. Nice, dude. That's awesome. Congrats. I'm working on my PhD right now. I kind of took a break from it just because I've kind of like all doubled down on business as a late that and moving. But I'm working on my PhD right now, so I will probably resume that back in the start of next year, like 2023, and I'll finish that up at like the mid year of 2024, like so summer of 24. I'll have my PhD. That's the plan. That's the plan. But yeah, guys, this was awesome. Thank you so much for having me. If there's no questions or anything like that, I know it's getting late. So I don't want to hold you guys up much longer. And like once again, like if you have any questions or anything, they love cutting us off. Who loves cutting you off, Devin? Oh, sorry. That wasn't correlating in my mind. Yeah, sorry, that wasn't correlating in my mind. Once again, long day, very long day. But yeah, guys, like this was awesome. If you do have any questions, just like feel free to hit me up. I'm going to put my Instagram handle in the chat.
Real quick, while we're all in here, those of you who have not filled out the survey yet, since you are on, might as well just get it done for them. This helps him.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, just a brief few minutes for that.
Yeah, and guys, all this survey is I'm not going to like spam your email. Don't worry. All this really is pretty much just me kind of getting some testimonials as I'm growing in the speaking space a little bit more. And I just like to have some testimonials just to show people like, hey, I talked to Dakota and I talked to Madison and I talked to Ashlyn about X, Y, and Z. And like, this is what they thought about it. So it's just a way to kind of help me out. And also, I do have a podcast if anybody wants to follow that. I think Malachi put it in the chat as well. Yeah, so my podcast, I will warn people, that's that's where I get like really more fiery, just because it's kind of like me in my office talking and like I don't have people in front of me. So like I kind of just like let it all out of my heart. And like I often like call that like my venting hour. Episodes aren't an hour, they're like 20 to 30 minutes. But like if you ever feel like you are lacking that motivation, my clients tell me all the time, like they just they turn one of my podcasts on in the morning and like they're ready to like run through a wall. And like that makes me feel awesome. I tend to say fuck a lot on my podcasts, fair warning. You can blame Jason Phillips for that. Which Jason's actually a mentor of Malachi's, Kane's, and I's or Mine's, however you say it.
Yeah, and so I really want to touch base on a few things here, because most of the time as clients and, like those of you who don't like being called clients, apologize. But those of you who are being coached, sometimes you look at us as if we don't have any of these thoughts going on through our head, or we may like just wake up and because we do what we love every day, we have no times where we're not motivated. We have no times where we wake up and we're like, I can't do this, you know? But I think the important thing is knowing that where you want to be, you have to understand that you don't like, you're not there yet because you don't have what you need in order to get there.
Right.
But you won't get that until you get there. So it is going to be hard. You have to go into the unknown, and you have to go into it knowing that you don't have everything you need, but you're prepared. You're prepared to learn and use it to keep progressing, right? And so there's always going to be times where it's tough, but just know that you do have a community behind you. Every single person on this call has goals. They have hard times. They have hardships. We have life stressors. It's not just eat right, track your nutrition, work out, and check in with your coach, right? If you're having things going on in your life, we need to know, right? You know, that plays a big role into it. And, you know, it's important because I love questions. And if you have a coach that when you ask them questions, they get upset or they get worked up, really, you should question. If anybody gets worked up from a question that is from a standpoint of you actually need to learn something and they get upset from it, you need to question their intentions. All right. So again, like if you're struggling, we're transparent about it.
Yeah.
We understand that you struggle.
And I will add to this. My coach, yes, coaches have coaches. Like I actually texted him like shortly before I texted Malachi about like my day. I was like, dude, today just sucked. And he was like, okay, what's up? And like I told him, he was like, dude, I've been there. I know how that feels. Like, just understand it's a day. Like today has to end at some point. And he gave me some comfort. Like he gave me some comfort in the situation. And you know, I was like, yeah, like I'm just like really out of energy, like I'm down, like I'm depressed, like my workout's sucking. And he was like, hey, just get through it. Just like go through the motions if you have to. And you know, that's a sign of a good coach. You know, he could have been like, oh, like get out of it, like cool, like quit being a punk, or you know, something like that. You know, he could have been, because he is actually from the UK. I'm not, like I joked about earlier. He's actually from the UK, so they're very blunt. But you know, that's the signs of a supportive coach. Like if they're able to take a step back and be like, hey, I get that, I've been there before, like what can I do for you? You know, that tells you you have a good coach. If it's more than just macros and curls, as I like to say, you know, that's a sign of a good coach. Awesome, Sean. Thank you for doing that survey. Bro, if I get a call because someone ran into a wall from your podcast. Devin, I love that. I love that.
Real quick, so far, how has this video chat been? Let us know in the comments. It's good. We're going to be having more of these. You know, I'd really like to educate you guys on a lot. So if you have any particular areas in your fitness journey that you'd like someone to talk on, like hormones or, you know, like women empowerment, you know, anything, I'd love to get people on here to talk to you guys, you know, provide perspective, let them tell their story, because it's not about me. You know, it's not about Michael, it's not about Kane, it's about you guys. So we're here to serve you. All right, so taking requests, anything that you'd like to see, I'm definitely ready to make it happen for you guys. We have some big things coming, 2023. I'm like mad excited to share it with you guys, but it's eat me alive. We're gonna wait. We're gonna wait. It's good. Any questions before we kind of wrap it up? I know it went pretty long, but it was a good one. Good one.
Yeah, so like I do want to touch on something like really fast. Like I know at like one point, like I called people out like being a parent and their health and all that shit. Please know, like if you're in that spot where you're like your health's not where you want it to be and you are a parent, I'm not calling you a shitty parent. Just saying, like if you really like, if being a parent is like super fucking important, nutrition should, like, your health and nutrition should be there with it. So like that's all I was saying. I wasn't saying like you're a shitty parent or anything like that. I promise. Like if I was to say that, like my fiance's parents are shitty parents, and like they're the best parents that I've ever had. So
All right, so I'm just gonna unmute my mic for this because it's a lot easier to say it instead of text it. So I
Absolutely.
obviously get and I understand, like, you got your health food, you got your vegetables, your fruits. You're not supposed to eat a crap ton like he referred to earlier. Like, instead of eating the whole pizza, you eat a couple slices. I need help basically understanding, like, if I want to eat, like, go to Taco Bell, or I want to make tacos, or I want to do something at home, what can I make that out of that with that is healthy for me?
Right. So healthy alternatives.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Did you end up going into the macro-friendly fast food guide? Did you check that out yet?
I have not.
Okay. So there is a macro-friendly fast food guide for those of you who are like, oh, what's that? I did make a guide that has all of your local restaurants, Taco Bell, KFC, Jack in the Box, Chick-fil-A, Starbucks, has all of your healthy options that are on the menu right there on the guide. And it says the exact calories and macro breakdown for you to put it in your app and track your nutrition so that you're on point, even when you go to the convenient places like Taco Bell. Because I get it, like, you can't be perfect, and there's times where I wind up at Taco Bell, but there's also controllables. You can control whether or not you're putting guac in your power bowl. You can control whether or not you're getting a double crunch or a twist. But yeah, the macro friendly guide, I'll send that over to you. And then also I do have a lot more resources that'll give you alternatives to a lot of your foods that you enjoy. So that'll help you out. Is there anything, like, any other questions regarding food other than just alternatives, things that you don't understand? Michael is he works with a lot of his clients on metabolism.
So that is actually a true thing. Like the older you get, the slower your metabolism becomes. So the more important it is to actually maintain a stronger metabolism. So, but yeah, so like I'll also kind of add to this. Like you control all aspects of your life. Like legit. Like that's like my main belief in life. You control every single aspect. Like I controlled the fact that I got out of my office today and went to the gym. Like I controlled, like I actually like having a bad day and I was like, you know, I need to do this call, like it'll make me feel better. Like you control every single aspect. Like we going back to motivation, we don't always feel like doing it, but you control like if you do it or not. So like you control like what you put in your mouth.